Slovakia, that little country tucked between Poland and Hungary, set in motion a pretty significant artillery expansion following the 2022 invasion of Ukraine. At the core of it is the Zuzana II self-propelled howitzer, a unique-looking piece of artillery. It's essentially a modernized descendant of the Dana 152mm, an SPG produced by Czechoslovakia starting in the early 1980s to fulfill a role equivalent to the Soviet Akatsiya, but wheeled to afford it greater road mobility. While the Slovaks adopted the original Zuzana 2000 back in the late 90s, it has recently taken delivery of 2 batteries worth of the modernized Zuzana 2s and is awaiting a third. In practice, the Zuzana 2 is essentially in between a tracked SPG like an Akatsiya or M109 and a more conventional truck-mounted SPG like the French Caesar or Japanese Type 19. It's based on a Tatra 817 8x8 truck chassis heavily modified to accept superstructures, so it has many of the benefits of a wheeled vehicle. It can efficiently self-deploy over roads without a tank transporter, and all else equal, requires less of a logistical tail when compared to a tracked vehicle. The Zuzana 2's range of action is generally cited as 600 to 650 kilometers, or 370 to about 400 miles, compared to 300 kilometers or 186 miles for the M109A7. These figures will vary in practice with idling, different types of terrain, and other factors, so take it as a best case cruising range on road. The Zuzana 2's on-road speed is also 90 kilometers or 56 miles per hour, versus the 109A7's 61 kilometers or 38 miles per hour. Although the Zuzana 2's off-road speed is more like 20 to 30 kilometers per hour. This is on the low end or inferior when compared to some tracked equivalents. In terms of obstacles, the Zuzana 2 can cross 2.1 meter trenches or 83 inches, which is not the worst thing in the world. The M109A7 is generally referenced as being able to cross a 1.8 meter trench. Zuzana 2 can clear a 60 centimeter or 24 inch vertical obstacle compared to 53 centimeters or 21 inches for the M109. The Zuzana 2 can ford 1.2 meters of water, more than an M109, which is rated for 1.07 meters or 42 inches. However, there are some caveats that may not be covered in the marketing figures for either platform. Wheeled platforms, even if they're rated for a certain size of obstacle, may have to be more careful when crossing them, which slows things down. And in extreme cases, like the mud situation at certain times of year in Ukraine, wheeled vehicles can struggle where some tracked vehicles can run, albeit hard. I have no evidence to compare the Zuzana 2 or M109 in these sort of situations specifically, but they're factors beyond the stats that can impact off-road mobility as well. Moving on though, something that sets Zuzana apart from the wheeled contemporaries like the Caesar is it can be fired under armor. The driver is placed in a forward compartment set lower than a typical medium truck, while the gun commander and shell handler who sets the fuses are in the right turret cabin, and the charge handler is in the left turret cabin. The Zuzana 2's armor is rated against armor-piercing 7.62 cartridges, to include tungsten carbide 7.62 NATO and the 7.62x54R B32 round. In terms of blast protection, it's rated against hand grenades and unexploded artillery submunitions that explode under the vehicle, so enough to ward off platoon-level small arms fire taken during chance contact, and near-miss counter-battery fire, but not much else, which is to be expected of an SPG. The gun is auto-loaded, so it can be fired under NBC protection, but can also be manually loaded as a backup. French Caesar crews, meanwhile, are outside of the vehicle when it's operating, but the Zuzana 2 is also twice as heavy as a Caesar 6x6 and not as air mobile, making it less expeditionary. In terms of armament, while the Czechs stuck with the original 152mm Dana, the Slovaks adopted the original Zuzana 2000 with a 45 caliber 155mm gun in 1998, making it compatible with NATO ammunition. One of the Zuzana 2's upgrades was a new 52 caliber gun. In cannon terms, caliber is the bore diameter, but is often used as a unit of measure to describe the barrel length by how much longer it is compared to its bore diameter. So 155mm x 52 is its barrel length, same as the Panzerhaubitze 2000 or Caesar. Thanks to the Zuzana's autoloader, it has a maximum rate of fire of 5 rounds in the first minute and 13 rounds in 3 minutes. But artillery pieces in practice don't always sustain their maximum rate of fire because of temperature concerns, even if the autoloader can handle it. Going through their entire magazine in 10 minutes would also mean taking a ton of time off the line to replenish the autoloader, which means it's not available to take fire missions. Some types of fire missions will also prioritize continuous fire over time rather than maximum damage in a short burst. But the limiting factor of artillery crew endurance is effectively taken out of the equation, which can improve the amount of time the gun carries out sustained firing. As far as ammo, Zuzana 2 carries 40 complete rounds aboard. The Zuzana 2's autoloader is adapted to handle longer shells than the Zuzana 2000, up to a meter long, which is set to allow for newer precision munitions like the Excalibur. Its firing range with conventional rounds is 32.5 kilometers, or 41 kilometers with base bleed rounds, compared to the original's 39 kilometer base bleed range. But it can also theoretically hit 50 kilometers with rocket-assisted projectiles, although this isn't most rounds. It also has an M2 HB 50 cal for close-in and limited anti-aircraft protection. Now that you have an idea of the platform, it's time for the Battle Order Special. The Slovak 21st Self-Propelled Artillery Battalion currently has a command and support battery, which includes a fire direction center and logistical elements, 2 firing batteries, although they plan on manning a third one as well, right now it's only theoretical, an artillery reconnaissance battery, and a medical unit. Each firing battery has 8 Zuzana 2 SPGs. I have the exact configuration one of their firing batteries, callsign Bison, deployed as during its 6-month rotation to EFP Latvia in late 2022. At the gun level, there are 4 crew members as I mentioned earlier. 4 guns makes a platoon. There are 2 firing platoons per battery. Each battery also includes a command platoon. This includes the battery HQ, fire direction center, and an ammunition section. The battery HQ includes a light vehicle like a Land Rover Defender, a medium supply truck like a Tatra 815, and 6 personnel. The FDC includes a Tatrapan command post based on the 6x6 version of the Tatra 815, a light vehicle, 2 Praga V3S radio stations, and 24 troops. The ammunition section meanwhile has 4 Tatra 815 trucks and 2 soldiers per truck. For their 2022 Latvia deployment, they were also augmented with forward observers. This included 2 4-man teams mounted on alligators, a little guy kind of similar to a VBL but uglier, and 2 teams on BPS-VI combat reconnaissance vehicles, basically modernized BMP-1s. It has a remote turret with a 30mm autocannon, machine gun, and 2 Konkurs ATGMs. These would be the guys that observe targets and call for fire. They also had a recce team on a light vehicle. I'm told these were technical surveyors for reconnoitering firing positions for the battery. So if you were to spark notes it, the battery had 8 guns, fire control, ammunition supply, and was augmented with forward observers under armor. This battery served as part of a multinational artillery group. In late 2022, this included the Canadian Archer Battery of the 1st Royal Canadian Horse Artillery with 4 M777s, the Spanish Mira Battery 11th Field Artillery Regiment with 6 M109A5s, and Bison with its 8 Zuzanas. The American Aztec Battery 329 Field Artillery of the 4th Infantry Division's 3rd Armored BCT also stopped by to do some training. As for the overall structure of Slovak artillery, at the time of the 5th Artillery Regiment's raising in 2022, the only artillery units that existed were the 54th Rocket Artillery Battalion with its RM-7085s based on the Tatra 815 chassis, and the 21st Self-Propelled Artillery Battalion. This is the Zuzana Artillery Battalion and was formerly subordinate to the 2nd Mechanized Brigade. It'll eventually have 24 Zuzana 2s, with 1 additional in inventory for training. Concurrent with the regiment's reactivation, the organizational framework for the 56th Anti-Tank Battalion was also created. The plan is for it to be equipped with Spike LR2 anti-tank guided missiles. Further, they plan to form an additional 2 artillery battalions. The 52nd Self-Propelled Artillery Battalion, equipped with the 16 Zuzana 2000s that were formerly used by the 21st, and the 53rd Artillery Battalion, which would initially use 18 towed D-30 howitzers. The D-30s would ideally be replaced by a system in a NATO caliber, although it's uncertain when. Janes reported in June of 2023 the tentative plan to procure more truck-mounted SPGs, possibly the EVA, which has the same gun as the Zuzana 2 and is based on the Tatra 815. As far as I know, that's just a possibility though, and nothing concrete. They plan to actually complete the staffing and arming of these units by 2035. If you'd like more on armored vehicles, check out this video on the M8 airborne tank and how it would have been used if it wasn't abruptly cancelled. I'll see you over there.